Hi, I'm Doreen Ashton-Wagner, host of Pivot Points, presented by the Cornwall and Area Chamber of Commerce. And today we are meeting with Monique Primeau-Lascelle of Dazzling Costumes here in Cornwall. Hi, Monique. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. So, Monique, why don't you start us off by telling us a little bit about your business journey? How you got started, what was the evolution in your business a little bit so that we can
Definitely
get to know about you.
Okay, it's going to make me feel a bit old because it is 30 plus years ago. But way back when, I was asked by a company in Ottawa to make a mascot for the restaurant. And I remember the cost of the mascot when all was said and done was $105. And I had so enjoyed doing that mascot that I went, And then I started to make costumes for rental from my house.
Okay.
Way back when.
Way back when.
Yes.
All right. And did you know how to sew before you got started? And
Yes.
so you had been taught and picked that up?
Yes, I had a mom who was extremely well talented in the sewing department. My grandmother, I had an aunt, Aunt Eldina, who had a fabric store. So yes, we were very much in tune with sewing and fabrics.
Good for you. You were telling me, because we met over the phone a little bit before this, that you found a way when you started your business to work things around with having kids, and you changed careers also getting there, right?
Initially, I did teach.
Yeah.
And then when I met my husband, of course, we decided to have a family. And after the second child, I said, I think I want to stay home and be with the children, stay-at-home mom. And it kind of evolved into a point that after the fourth child, which unfortunately had several medical issues, and it was life between the children and Chio, but then of course I needed something, an outlet, and realizing that I would never return to teaching because of my special needs child. I wasn't super mom to that point. That's when I kind of evolved more into the rental company of sewing up costumes and renting them from my house.
Wow. And then when did you move into a retail outlet? How did that come about?
Well, working from home, basically in the first house, then we moved to a bigger house because our family had grown and we worked from the house as well. But it did get a little too busy because people had to come into the house to get down to the basement. So I found a little shop on Montreal Road, opened up the shop, Costumes by Monique. And consequently, my younger son, when he was 21, was no longer at school. They finished school at 21. And again, being that he's special needs, it just meant that I could not have a regular job and keep my sanity. So at that time, I kind of inched towards being online, and I liquidated the contents of my rental store on Montreal Road and kept going online, because it meant that I could be more at home for him, and it allowed us to continue the journey in the costumes.
So it sounds to me like a lot of your flexibility that you needed in your private life really was what inspired the changes in your business. And is that right? Does that make sense?
It does make sense because I'm a very optimistic person, philosophical in some ways, because I've always preached to my children that life is not fair, but you must move forward in a positive way. So in as much as some things happen, whether you like it or not, life throws you curves. You absorb the curve, and I mean, there's highs and there's lows, but I kept going forward because I did enjoy what I was doing. And the rest seems to be history at this point. And we're still getting lots of curves in our lives. The world is getting curves. But that being said, you have to move forward. And like I said, I'm blessed with a very optimistic attitude, so that does help.
Absolutely. So, but you went back to retail, right? At some point, you have a location. You bought a building. Tell me more about that.
Well, what happened is, again, based on my son, he did get into a day program in Alexandria. So it would kind of allow me some days to have more flexibility in doing work. And then we did a placement for him because he was getting older, and it's, in our opinion, it's fair for everyone at a time. Sooner or later, he does need a placement. And then it was being like at home with no children. So obviously it seemed like, I can continue the dream, if we can call it a dream. And consequently, we purchased the building on McConnell Avenue. and my staff wanted to open a store. So we did open a store portion, but the rest of the building, there's 3 full floors out of 15,000 square feet that are dedicated to the e-commerce site.
Wow. Okay. And with the e-commerce site, I mean, you have clients all over the world, really. It sounds like you'd shipped and sent costumes everywhere. Can you tell me a little bit about what it's like to market a company internationally or online?
Well, it kind of happened naturally when you go online. Obviously, you want to reach different markets, whether they're in the US, international. And we did hit a lot of international sectors, especially in the beginning, because e-commerce was fairly new. And it was interesting because sometimes we'd ship to a country and we go like, okay, we know a bit about geography, but where is this country? So the map came out quite a few times so we could locate it. And the odd time we would sell something to a person like Ellen DeGeneres Studios, and you'd go like, I wonder if this is for her, or is this for a staff that's just doing it for their kids? And is that work once they receive the parcel at work? So we did get quite a few people, or I should say companies that people that ordered through their companies, I should say, with very interesting names that were renowned. And we'd always go like, oh, wow, we're famous now. But obviously it was just something. It was a sale, and we just made sure to complete the sale, to the best of our ability, like every other sale.
Hey, it's kind of fun, right? To know where it's going. I mean, you don't.
Oh yeah, and my staff was quite jovial whenever we'd see a famous name and or a famous theater company, and we'd go, oh, wow, or someone in New York. I'm sorry, I don't recall the name, but they were doing a window display and they needed X amount of items that we had, and we're going, oh wow, we're going to be in New York windows.
That's great.
Again, it's just like maybe flattering our ego, but it was interesting for us.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of life curves, there was a little curve that happened in all our lives about a year ago, and so on, and it's changed things, obviously. Tell me what's happening right now in the store, and what are you doing?
Well, briefly, whenever just prior to the I'll use the C word, COVID. The COVID alert came out. The previous day, I had already laid off all my staff, knowing what was coming. And since our business, we travel quite a bit in January and February to different shows to be able to buy our wares, our goods for the upcoming season. So most of our ordering was already done in January and February and early March. So I did call all my companies because survival at this point kind of clicked in my brain. And I said, well, I can't have all these orders coming in if we're closed. So I just put everything on pause. And as the pandemic progressed throughout the year, I would have some companies release some items because we were selling online. But also keeping in mind that selling online, we are a bit in the partyish mode. Not too many people were partying at that time. So our sales really took a dive. And we were trying to find ways to kind of stay on top, and it took a while for me to rehire my staff. It took a while to reopen the store. Consequently, the store had to close again. So we just went, you have to go with the flow, unfortunately, whether you agree or do not agree with the COVID guidelines. Bottom line is that we had decided to abide by the rules and regulations that were assigned to store owners. Fair, not fair. My heart goes out to each business that did not make it, because I know there's quite a few, to restaurants, mom and dad operations, because it was very challenging. It is still a very challenging. We have not yet reopened from the last shutdown, though we are aiming in a few weeks to be up and running again.
Right. And you said you're by nature an optimistic person, so it's always good to hear that. You refocus, though, you were telling me as well, and you've got plans coming up. You're planning yet another pivot, it sounds like. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, thank you. It's something that's been on the back burner for quite a while. We did dabble in it a few years back, but this time I do feel it's an opportunity for us, being that we have a costume, and we're not a party store as such, but we do have partyish stuff. And now we're going to be expanding in a very big balloon section for the store, which is I do believe it's going to be an asset because we have costumes, we have a lot of items that are novelties, and balloons seem to be the perfect fit. And so many of my colleagues told me over the past years, why don't you have balloons, Monique? Like, what's going on? And I'd say, but it wasn't the back burner, and the timing was perfect this time. So actually, as we're talking, the girls are presently setting up that section, and we look forward to serving the customers with balloons.
With balloons. And are there any specific plans on getting the word out? And how are the balloons going to be delivered? Or are you planning some creative things with the balloons? Tell me more.
Some items are still in the planning mode, such as deliveries, though I do believe in a few days that will be resolved. And we are also going to function according to our abilities. As we begin, do not ask me to decorate a 15,000 square foot ballroom because we do not have the abilities right now. But we are having several conferences with balloon artists. Actually, there's a 3-day weekend coming up, and it's going to be virtual and from 7 a.m. till 6 p.m. at night. And we're going to be conferring with 30 balloon artists. And it's a lot of hands-on virtually. They're sending us our balloon kit, though we have so many balloons right now. So we're looking forward to that. And I do have a colleague who is a balloon artist, and he will be coming to spend a few days training our staff as well. Though a lot of them already have a lot of knowledge in the balloons, but it's nice to be, a bit on top of it all, new trends.
It sounds to me like learning. I mean, you were a teacher originally in your career, but learning is a big part of what you do. I heard that you learned about having a website and selling online, and now learning with balloons and so on. So how do you get your staff on board and getting them to learn? Is there something that you can think of that?
I'll flatter myself and I say I'm a good boss. But no, they're all things, they're all plans and projects that embrace our industry, embrace our job. And the staff that I have are really open to, hey, let's try this, let's try that. So they're willing and they're able, definitely. And they really have a zest for what we do, which is, they like what they're doing. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. So it's positive all the way.
That's great. So to wrap it up, I'd love for you to provide maybe your top 3 tips that you'd like to pass on to fellow business owners and entrepreneurs in our region about making changes in their business.
Don't sit back and think that it will automatically evolve by itself. You have to work at it. If you sit back, it's going to fail, in my beliefs. And another thing is you have to be a go-getter. If you want something, make plans and try very, very hard to go get it. Chances are you'll be able to achieve it. But again, don't sit back. It's not going to come to you. The e-commerce world is challenging to no end. And I did notice that during the pandemic, a lot of people hopped on board with websites. There was a specific company targeting a lot of people. We will give you retailers, wholesalers, we will give you this. Here we're getting 3 months free, and people hop on it tremendously. But just getting on a website is the easy part. To be able to maintain it, to market it, is the hard part, and it takes years. Unless you're willing to put in the work, because there's no easy money out there. To get on a website and to think that you're going to make millions, I don't believe it happens that way. At least it didn't happen for me. You really have to work hard at it. And some companies will make you think that it's very easy. Yeah, it's easy to get on. But to maintain, they kind of neglect to tell you about that challenge. But don't give up. Like, just keep pushing. If that's your destiny, if that's your plans, if that's your passion, keep going. Don't give up.
And your last tip? Do you have one last one?
Well, when life throws you a curve, deal with it. Yeah, life's not fair. Say what you may, life is not fair. I've preached that. But just don't sit back and pity yourself and waddle in pity. And it is difficult. I'm not undermining that in any way. Very, very difficult. Try and find ways to move forward in a positive way and love what you do and have a passion for what you do.
Monique, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your words of wisdom with us. We really appreciate it. So, on behalf of the Cornwall and Area Chamber of Commerce, thank you, viewers, for joining us and learning all about pivot points.